All right, today I'm going to cover a topic that may be, a little more controversial. So just a warning when I'm going to be upfront with this. When I make this statement, I am speaking as someone who has studied this for many, many years. Again, I'm 48. I've been around serious lifting over 25 years. I've seen a lot of the science, talked to a lot of doctors, experts, have looked at what a lot of various bodybuilders do. And this is not a prescription. In fact, what I'm going to discuss here, I'm going to advise that literally no human being on the face of the earth ever do this to their body. It is extremely reckless. You will die younger as a result of it. Okay, so let me be clear. I am explaining how these bodybuilders have gotten so big in the last couple generations. I am telling you to absolutely not do it because this is also a big reason why they are dying young. It's a big reason why so many of them are diabetic and they have different issues and issues with their pancreas and everything else. Okay, this is extremely dangerous. But I'm going to explain what is happening and why insulin is what's made these bodybuilders so big. So what a lot of people don't understand, they think steroids, right? They see the really big bodybuilders like, oh, that's all steroids. But it's like, it's not. Steroids have limits, okay? Pretty much anabolic steroids work through the same receptor, the androgen receptor that testosterone works to. Can we argue there could be some non-androgen receptor mediated activity, like effects on glucocorticosteroids and stuff in the body? Okay, yes. So there can be some other anti-catabolic benefits to some extent with 19 NORs, maybe a much lesser extent with testosterone. DHTs don't necessarily have it, so okay. But by and large, that's setting all that aside. By and large, most of the muscle growth is caused through the same receptor that testosterone is, which is why testosterone is a commonly used steroids. But all other steroids are androgens. They work off the same receptor in the muscle tissue that testosterone does, no differently. Exact same receptor. What they were designed to do, they're testosterone derivatives. All right, there's a limit to how big you can get. And what I mean is, Arnold and Mike Menzer and all those guys were using extremely high doses of steroids. Steroids work on a diminished return. Every study that's ever looked at them found that every time they doubled the dose, even at small amounts, the muscle gain was only increased 50%. So 100% increase in dose only causes 50% more muscle growth. And this is at low doses. We're talking like going to 150, 300, 600, so on. Okay, this is what's been found in clinical trials in humans done here in America in healthy young men. All right, these guys were using a couple grams frequently. That's been admitted and rumored. A lot of these guys were using up to 2,000 milligrams, even in the Arnold era. That's a lot. When guys use more than that, yes, there are bodybuilders who've been caught using 8,000, 10,000, insane amounts of testosterone and other anabolics. Right? 8,000 milligrams a week. It's crazy. It's over a gram a day. It's crazy. It doesn't cause much more muscle growth. Like it's almost unnoticeable. It's probably just water beyond like that 2,000 mark. 2,000 even over 1,000 is arguably minor. So there's a cap on that. All right, there's a cap on that, and you start getting diminished returns. So really, guys like Arnold, guys like Mike Menzer, they were pretty well at the limits of what steroids can get someone in terms of size. Because you're like, well, they were way smaller. They're way smaller than these guys. Sometimes 50 pounds less muscle, 60 pounds less muscle. Why are they so much bigger? Okay, so here's what they found out. A lot of guys figured out the growth hormone seems to cause a slightly stronger signal from the anabolics, right? It seems to increase androgen sensitivity just a little bit. Your steroids go a little further. Growth hormone doesn't really make you bigger. It seems to cause some hyperplasia after about a year of continuous use, maybe dose dependent, arguable on that, but no growth is ever seen in the first year ever at any dose in a human. It's never been seen in the lab. So it's not adding significantly. But what it does, it makes you get away with a little more steroids. So the steroids are a little stronger. Okay, we get a little more oomph. All right, this was something guys figured out, but here was the thing they also figured out. Okay, you ready? It blunts fat gaining. Guys could eat like crap. So a lot of these guys found out, especially if they were big and gaining muscle and on anabolics, the growth hormone blunted their fat gain. It also speeds up fat loss. Okay, also makes tendons and stuff stronger. There's a lot of stuff happening here. See where we're going with this? So it wasn't necessarily adding muscle, but it's stripping fat off of them even when they're bulking. So that meant guys could bulk harder. They could bulk even harder without getting fat. especially high doses of it. There are guys on high doses who are like, I can't gain fat at all, like no matter what I eat. Here's the problem. Any potential muscle growth benefit from the steroids from it, though, what ends up happening while you're on it, while it's in your system, it makes you insulin resistant, also in a dose-dependent manner. So it's stopping fat gain, but it also causes insulin resistance. All right, this is blunting any extra muscle growth. This is probably one reason guys don't really get bigger on it by itself in the lab either. Because sure, it can have an anabolic effect in theory, but it blunts insulin by increasing insulin resistance, reducing insulin sensitivity. Okay, so then guys are like, okay, so we're getting all this other anabolic benefit and it's making us leaner. Why is it called growth hormone? It's making us leaner, but it's blunting some of the muscle growth because we can't get the nutrients into the muscle as easy. Well, along came insulin. You see where we're going? This is what made Dorian big. Dorian was the first pro bodybuilder to really push the insulin hard with growth hormone. Dorian's stack was published in Muscular Development before YouTube or Facebook even existed. Before any of our social media was out, he did an interview in Muscular Development. He was using about 2.2 to 2.4 grams a week with 8 units of growth hormone. That's a decent amount of growth hormone, the old school pharma grade. Right, the good stuff back in the day. Okay? But Dorian pushed insulin. He came in there carrying another 20 pounds of muscle and grainier and harder. He was the biggest, most chiseled thing people had seen, and it was the insulin, okay? Because stop and think about it. People say, well, insulin, how come he got harder and grainier? Well, because all the growth hormone. But what happens when you think about it, so it's not that insulin doesn't work, it's just blunted, it's resistant, right? It's harder to push the nutrients through. Harder to get glucose and amino acids into the muscle cell in spite of all of this protein synthesis happening. But what happens when they add insulin? It forces nutrients back into the muscle. Okay, it then bypasses all the insulin resistance because you could just push it harder. So it's kind of like, think about it as pressure on the other end. Okay, so if you've got a hole that's only a certain size and you can only push so much air through it, it's a tiny little pinhole, but you go from 10 psi to 100 psi. Oh man, you're going to force a ton of air through that little hole. Way more. So that's what the insulin does. And people are like, but what about fat gain? Like if you're going to use tons and tons and tons of insulin, it might cause fat storage. Well, in theory, except that they're on all this growth hormone. It's blunting the fat gain. The end result, it's like a supercharger. So just think about the air being forced. It's like a supercharger for the nutrients now being force-fed into the muscles by this insulin. Insulin's a transport hormone. It's pushing all the nutrients in spite of the insulin resistance. Now we get the anabolic benefit from the growth hormone, particularly with the synergy with all the testosterone and tren and deca and everything they're using. This is why we get the mass monsters. This is what's making them so big. And this is before we even get into a discussion of IGF-1. That's a whole other topic. Now, this makes these bodybuilders massive. It makes them massive. It's also extremely dangerous. Okay, so I want to make that point clear also. This is dangerous. But this is how it works. This is why it works. All right, guys, but that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative. And I'll talk to you guys and gals next time.